All right, everybody, thank you for joining me today. Today we'll be discussing how to defend your workplace from a new kind of insider threat. And so the reason we decided to do this today is because we've been having so many conversations recently with security leaders, HR leaders, IT folks, CEOs of companies who are finding a lot of fake workers in their environments. Sometimes these people are, from North Korea or similar places. Sometimes they're just employees who are giving access to their laptops to other to people from other countries who are doing the job for them. But all of it boils down to the same thing, which is companies are having a really tough time figuring out, are the people who are doing the work who they say they are, and this is especially problematic in recent months for contractors, remote workers, so on and so forth. So um, today's all about that and what companies and businesses can do to stop it. And what we'll do towards the end of this presentation is we'll also walk you through an employee onboarding demo of how you can have a much more strict and secure way of onboarding employees into your organization on day one, because that seems to be a key area of entry for a lot of these malicious folks. So let's kick it off. So fake workers are a reality in a lot of companies right now. I don't think a day goes by where we here at Hyper do not have multiple interactions with companies that are facing this issue. Sometimes they're notified by the FBI if those people are from North Korea or Iran or similar countries, but a lot of the times uh, organizations are finding these people accidentally. So if you are a North Korean, for example, you're typically a soldier who is trained to act as a fake IT worker for some company in the United States. And right now, the primary use case is collect a US paycheck and use that money to, buy better cars for the regime or whatever else. But a lot of these instances are very different, where they're just lower wage people in developing or third world countries, and they would like to get a better paying job. So they are using the fact that there are people in the United States who aren't perhaps technical or good engineers, for example, but they are willing to get a interview for a job, get that job, get a corporate laptop shipped to them, and give access to that person in that other country to actually do the job for them. And a lot of these instances where companies have found people who are doing this internally, the individuals in North Korea or Vietnam or whatever country where they're sourced is they're doing terrific work, right? And they ask themselves, hey, do we really have to get rid of these people? And the answer is yes, because there's also sort of compliance headaches. And it's really not just an HR issue. And there's a lot of finger pointing internally happening right now at the enterprise level, at the company level, where, is it an HR problem? Is it a security problem? Some security teams have the thought process of, well, if it's just a worker who's doing a good job, that's not a security issue. But you know what? If they ever decide to install a piece of malware or exfiltrate PII or intellectual property, then it becomes a security issue, right? And we don't think that that's an acceptable answer for security teams. And HR teams are really struggling to find how can they implement technical controls to repeatedly solve for this issue, which we'll talk about later on. So the way that this multi-billion-dollar industry now works is um, uh, individuals will interview for a job, and then the person who shows up for the job sometimes will be the person who interviewed, other times not. If they are the person who shows up on day one who was actually interviewed, typically on the second or third week of work, they will give their credentials off to somebody else in another country. And then if there is nefarious intent behind this impersonation, that's where they'll move laterally, gain access to systems, and really establish persistence so that they can ultimately either hold the company up for ransom or sell their intellectual property to a competitor or some other third party. So what you can do here is there's a set of manual controls you can do. There's a set of technical controls you can implement. And this has to start as early as the onboarding process or the interview process for individuals. So the key is, look for inconsistent resumes. If people aren't willing to get on a video call during an interview, that's a major red flag. Uh, that should be a obvious requirement. And then making sure that you have consistency of video feed and across interview stages. And so this is where you might want to think about even implementing deepfake detection in the video stream if possible. Um, Two is during the onboarding process, really making sure that you're doing more than just the I-9, because a lot of times these fake documents can be created using AI tools. And it's pretty easy to buy an identity online that passes all sorts of background checks and so on and so forth um, on the dark web for as little as $70 to $90, depending on the identity and where it resides. And then even after a person is onboarded, having a continuous way of verifying them after that point is really critical. So anytime somebody is interacting with a help desk, maybe they're requesting more privilege or access with internal tools, that is where they will you will want to do additional identity verification steps. So this concept of verifying a person on their first day of work and then never verifying again, that has to go away. That is clearly not working in this modern world where the vast majority of folks can and do work from home, or they're in a position where they can outsource their job to somebody else. So really, in order to solve for this problem once and for all, you really have to think about how you can integrate identity verification as part of the onboarding process. And this means not just looking at their ID over a Zoom call or Teams call. You have to have multi-factor identity verification as part of this process where you look at the person's location. Like if they say they live in Ohio and they're working from Ohio, but they're not in Ohio, they're in a completely different country, like that needs to be looked at. And you have to have a repeatable technical way of knowing that. Um, Really looking at other security signals that you might have within your organization. So many companies right now purchase behavioral analytics tools or endpoint detection tools that send signals and alerts if something looks different. If people are installing different software, behaving abnormally, using that as a signal to then require that employee to re-verify themselves is key in this process. And then making sure that once you do verify somebody securely, that you're giving them a credential that is non-shareable. So this is really where passwordless becomes a critical component of any sort of zero trust identity strategy, where you have to look at the credential itself and make sure that the employee doesn't have an ability to share it with somebody malicious, either intentionally or unintentionally. And then thinking about how you can deploy this enterprise-wide, not just for a subset of employees, but really everybody, because anybody in your organization can be the weakest link. And oftentimes these hackers and groups really just look for a foothold um, to then expand throughout the rest of the organization that way. So let's talk about how this process and technology can actually work. When would you want to do stronger identity verification? So let's talk about the why, the how, and the outcomes. So why would you want to do identity verification and when? Anytime a person is resetting a credential, whether it's their password or their MFA, this usually happens when they forget their password or they buy a new iPhone over the weekend, they show up to work on Monday morning, they traded in their old iPhone and they don't have their MFA on their new phone, so now they have to call the help desk or use some self-service portal. And the unfortunate reality in most organizations these days, either whether you're calling the IT help desk or whether you're using a self-service reset portal, these things rely on knowledge-based factors or factors that are easily phishable. Right, so asking somebody what street they grew up on and their pet turtle's name is not a secure way of verifying their identity. And so that's one instance where you want to do this. We talked about onboarding already, interview verification as well. usually during the interview process, you can start with a lighter check where you might just do like a phone number check as well as a location check, and use that as the initial filtering system for candidates, right? Because one of the things that HR people struggle with a lot lately and when they're recruiting is they'll post a job online. It'll say the job has to be based in the United States, and then they'll get 1,000 applicants. 800 of them will be outside the country, right? So how do you filter that out very, very quickly and very, very easily in a repeatable way, even if people lie on their resume, um, is really important. And then if you're doing high value transactions, you would want to do something like this. If you're getting on a phone call and you're making some big decision, especially if it's financial in nature, if you're wiring money to somebody or something similar, um, you want to make sure that the person who is doing that is the person that has access to that account, right? And so this is one of those situations where having confidence goes beyond just having them do MFA, because if that person's credentials were phished or stolen or they got tricked into providing them to somebody else, now you have a stronger method of validating them securely. So how does this work? What we've implemented here at Hyper is a 4-step process, and I'll give a demonstration of this shortly. But the 4-step process can be used in any order, and you can use any subset of these steps. So the first step that we typically require is a device verification. So can you use a sync passkey or a phone number verification, right? So when a user goes through this device check in our verification process, which I'll show you here soon, this is really where the clock starts. And then we'll require them to go through a location check where we can compare that with their address on file. And then require them to do a government issued document check. Sometimes people can't do that though, right? If you ask somebody to scan their driver's license or passport, maybe they don't have it on them. Maybe they don't maybe they don't feel comfortable doing that, right? And you still need to be able to securely verify them without falling back to a insecure factor like the street you grew up on, right? So this is where the last step really comes into play in a big way, which is a step up. This is where we can escalate somebody to a text and video chat with their boss or manager, boss, manager, peer, somebody who they know, who can vouch for them and verify them over a quick video call. And so what really makes this secure and useful for security teams as well as HR teams is all of this happens in a single session. Employees are not doing this in some out-of-band fashion. So being able to impose and require multiple checks here within the same session gives a multi-factor verification approach that is extremely secure and has a lot more confidence. And most importantly, it has a full audit trail and evidence package end to end that security teams and HR teams can utilize. And the outcome of the verification can be to reset your password and roll into MFA. There's really strong integrations here with Entra and Microsoft, where you can give somebody a temporary access pass or issue them a verified ID from Microsoft. Or you can even customize your own actions, right? Sometimes if somebody is, let's say, doing a wire transfer or something similar, you can create code and policies to essentially do that after a successful verification. Or you can just send an alert to the security team. If somebody is coming in and they pass their device check, they fail their location check, they fail their document check, you can send that to the security team to actually look into it, because there's no reason maybe that they should fail those things unless maybe they're traveling, and that's where maybe you want somebody actually to chat with them that they know. So without further ado, let's jump into a quick demonstration of what this looks like. The demo that we're going to be showing you here is an employee onboarding demo. So typically on their first day of work, the employee would get an email from their boss or HR, and that would say, hey, here's your corporate email, welcome to the company. Um, uh, Go to this link to verify yourself, and then you'll be issued a new credential. Okay, so in this case, Bill Lundberg is onboarding Peter, and this is where we'll kick off the demo video so you can see what this actually looks like. So what Peter will do when he gets this email, he'll click this link that takes him to verify.hyper.com or whatever your URL is, and he'll be taken through this process that happens on his computer browser or on his phone browser. So employees don't need to download a separate app. This works on any computer, any browser. If you have Chrome, Firefox, Safari, whatever else, this will work for you. So Peter will click that link in his email. He'll say, I'm a new employee. And then it'll ask him for that email address that was provided to him. So he'll put in his email address. And when he puts it in his email address, he will Hyper will go into his system of record, into his organization system of record, and pull down his information. And first thing we'll ask him is a very simple check, which is, hey, you have a phone number that ends in 849, put in that phone number. So he puts in the phone number, we send him a text message, we verify that code, and then that starts the clock in his verification process. Then we ask him to share his location. We'll compare that with his address on file. And then we'll ask him to provide his government issued document. So in this case, he will scan his driver's license. So Peter will take a front and back picture of his driver's license here. And when he does that, this will be compared against all the various databases on the back end with regards to state and local government. And this works globally across 190 plus countries. And once we take a picture of his driver's license, we'll require him to take a selfie, which we'll compare to the picture that's on his document that he uploaded, right? So by this point, we have verified his phone number, his location, his driver's license, and his selfie all in the same session. And then since this is his onboarding, and this is he's going through all of the 4 steps in the process, he'll be put into a chat with his manager. So on the right-hand side of the screen here, you'll see his boss. And he'll get a text message that says, it's Peter's first day, click here to verify him. And when he does that, he'll see all the information that's been verified about Peter so far. So his phone number checks out, his location checks out, his document checks out, and then they'll be put into a chat room. And so behind the scenes, Hyper is monitoring this entire interaction where we can provide a full audit trail. And the reason we really think this is a critical step is because we see a lot of companies reverting to requiring employees to like get on a Zoom call or a Teams call on their first day of work where they'll show their driver's license to the screen or something similar. And that's not a good method, and they really have no way to audit that interaction ever happened. Oftentimes managers will get on, they won't even turn on their video, and they'll just say, yeah, you're approved, I have better things to do right now, welcome to the company. And so this enforces accountability and prevents individuals from taking shortcuts. And so once the manager says hello to his employee, he'll click continue. And when he clicks continue, one of the cool things that he can do here is before he approves this person or after he approves this person, he can put in notes, right? So he can say, yep, this was him, I approved him, so on and so forth. And then once the employee is verified, that's actually when they can now do one of those outcome steps that we mentioned, right? Where he can reset his password and roll into MFA or anything else. So this is the entire end-to-end flow of an onboarding example. Now, if somebody is just resetting their MFA and they're an existing employee, maybe you just take them through the first 3 steps of this process, right? Where it's fully automated, they don't need to talk to another person. Or if they fail any of these first 3 steps, then maybe you step them up to the text and video chat, right? Where you need that higher level of assurance to ensure that people are who they say they are. So this can be done, at the onboarding, at the interview stage, at the credential reset stage, or if any of your security tools happen to detect a potential risk, you can create a policy that says, hey, next time you come in, you have to go through an identity verification process for us to know who you are. So we see companies doing this for things like if an employee is accessing critical resources at 10 o'clock at night from a different country. It's really important that they're able to step them up and make sure that they're properly verified. So that's it for today. If you have any questions, email us, message me. This is really an exciting topic these days. It's changing every single day, and I think I'm really looking forward to solving this problem.